While Encanto has been a widely enjoyed movie gaining fans all over the world, that doesn't mean it's a perfect film. Even the best movies have flaws. And with the large fan base for this feature, there is a quick list compiled of just how many mistakes Encanto appeared to have overlooked. Of these plot holes, which are the easiest to explain away and which are undoubtedly an issue? I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Encanto Plot Holes Tiny to Huge. For this list, we're going to be starting with the plot holes we consider the easiest to brush off and working our way down to those much harder to ignore. Our first spot covers the question of Mirabelle's glasses. Many fans had the argument that if Mirabelle's mother Julietta was able to heal people, then that should mean Mirabelle wouldn't need glasses. Originally, when we covered this theory, we pointed out that Julietta couldn't cure absolutely everything. People were still able to age, lose their hair, and have a number of other ailments. That suggested that Julietta's powers were limited to some extent, only able to fix injuries and wounds such as broken bones or allergic reactions. However, when the director of the film, Jared Bush, was approached and asked about this detail, he gave a very simple explanation. Mirabelle's vision wasn't fixed with Julietta's gift because she didn't have any interest in fixing her eyesight. Bush expressed his desire to make a Disney heroine that didn't look exactly like the princesses that Disney has come to be known for, and so giving the main protagonist glasses was one of the ways he accomplished this. Coming in as a close second is Dolores in multiple places at once. During the song The Family Madrigal, viewers noticed that Dolores was shown to be a fair distance from the village before miraculously showing up at the house to reveal Mirabelle's lack of gift to the children. While many simply ignored the small error, chalking it up to being cartoon logic, one Reddit user by the name of Bo Hates Beans came up with the idea that Dolores at the house was actually Camillo. Camillo was shown in the movie to use his shape-shifting power to do two things: helping around the village, taking the forms of the people around him, and using his family's forms to be mischievous.
You are make your papa proud.
I don't sound like that.
Camillo was also shown to be a convincing replica of his sister Dolores. So much so that Mirabelle approached him, not realizing it wasn't really Dolores she was speaking to until Dolores and Felix came out of the house and found Camillo sneaking seconds of breakfast. Another user had made the argument that the Dolores in the house had even made the small noises she's known to make throughout the movie, and therefore it couldn't be Camillo.
Mirabelle didn't get one.
After all, why would he bother? However, we have to say that Camillo taking the role of his sister and using her sweeter disposition to drop the bombshell of Mirabelle's lack of gift would be in character for him. Taking the next spot is Dolores kept Bruno's secret. Several Reddit users have gone into detail discussing how they didn't understand Dolores being able to keep Bruno's secret of living in the walls, and yet blurted out Mirabelle finding the vision within a few minutes. While there are some that didn't think this made any sense, we have to disagree and place this one as one of the more easily explained plot holes on this list. We had tackled this briefly in a previous list, pointing out that Dolores may have decided to spill that Mirabelle found the vision in order to ruin Mariano's proposal to Isabella. After all, that would have been Dolores' only chance to really come between Isabella marrying the man that Dolores herself had fallen for without gaining Abuela Alma's wrath. On top of that, we also want to point out the fact that we don't know for sure that Dolores really did keep Bruno's hiding place a secret. After all, Dolores was young when Bruno left. If she had heard Bruno in the walls and said something to her family, it would likely have been ignored entirely. On the other hand, it shouldn't be hard to believe that Dolores wouldn't bring it up at all. We see during the song We Don't Talk About Bruno that Dolores' mother Peppa was the one that fought the most for Bruno not to be mentioned. Would it really be so hard to think that Dolores wouldn't want to be on her mother's bad side for talking about Bruno? We also have to point out that when Mirabelle's secret was exposed, a lot had been piling on. Mirabelle had caused a stir talking about cracks forming in Casita. Louisa had been up all night with her eye twitching from stress.
And Louisa, I heard her eye twitching all night.
The rats in the walls were running around in a flurry of fear. To know all of that and then overhear that yes, the vision was found and yes, the magic was dying, of course Dolores cracked and spilled the beans. Following is Louisa carrying the donkeys. Reddit user Rosman629 asked the question as to why Louisa was carrying the donkeys when Antonio could have simply spoken to the animals and guided them to where they needed to be. In all fairness, this is a reasonable thing to ask. Our answer is that Antonio simply hadn't been given the task yet. After all, Antonio had just only received his gift when we saw Louisa going about her chores. As demanding as Abuela Alma was shown to be, always wanting the family to help the village, it would be unlikely that she would make Antonio go out and find some way to utilize his gift for the community. This is also supported by the fact that we saw Peppa coming into the nursery to help gather Antonio's things, showing he was still settling into his new room and adjusting to his new abilities. There was also the fact that Antonio clearly had his hands full with figuring out what Mirabelle was up to and trying to find a way to help.
For the nerves.
Dolores had pointed out that the rats knew something was amiss, so Antonio hearing them scared and connecting it to what Mirabelle was doing makes sense. Considering how close Antonio and Mirabelle were shown to be, of course he would want to help her find out what was causing the cracks in the casita any way he could. Once things calmed down and Louisa was pushed to relax more often, Antonio would no doubt step in to make sure the donkeys no longer wandered off, able to explain to the animals where they needed to be. Next on our list, we have this small issue of Mirabelle's parents being contradicting. Whereas Augustin made a point of trying to help hide the vision with Mirabelle and stood up to Abuela Alma for her, Julietta lacked in being there for her daughter for much of the movie. Yes, she had cried out for Mirabelle to flee from Casita as it was collapsing. Yes, she did heal Mirabelle's hand and asked Abuela Alma to take it easy on Mirabelle, considering how hard it was for her to watch Antonio's ceremony. However, Julietta didn't stand up for Mirabelle with the same conviction that her husband did. Reddit user Quisteria1998 also pointed out that it wasn't just Mirabelle that suffered from this inconsistency. Louisa was seen breaking out into tears, and neither her mother or father offered any sort of comfort. There was also the fact that Louisa had clearly been overworked for years and neither of their parents appeared to notice or care, leaving Louisa to simply deal with the pressures that were placed on her. With Isabella, she had a clear reaction to being wed to Mariano and being expected to have children right away. It was one thing that Alma ignored this reaction, but to think that Julietta and Augustin also brushed off the response Isabella had was concerning.
He wants 5 babies.
Wonderful.
There was also the fact that neither Augustin nor Julietta even bothered to notice their daughter Mirabelle wasn't in the family photo taken in Antonio's room, which would have been a low blow under the best of circumstances. Taking the next spot is Abuela having her own room. This is something that is a hit and a miss of a plot hole. There is the widely accepted theory that the main reason for this is because the room Alma is in is meant to be the room that the next family matriarch would inhabit, with that person likely being Mirabelle. That's a theory we're going to support. As annoying as it is to think Mirabelle would be stuck in the nursery until she became the next head of the house, it isn't an outlandish explanation. Redditor CJ Cassette Tape also raised the question as to why Alma's door reads Abuela when that isn't her name, but this is something easily explained by the movie's creators. The doors were designed to change as the person ages, so prior to reading Abuela, it likely read Mama or Alma. We've now reached the bronze medal ranked plot hole, Bruno's room. Just who thought it was a good idea to give a small child a room with hundreds of steps they would have to climb every day? Apparently, Casita thought that would fit the theme of fortune-telling perfectly. Now, we know that the doors on the outside of the room were originally designed to change as the person aged, but it's hard to be certain of the changes that occurred inside a room. The stairs could have appeared later on in Bruno's life, with the staircase growing larger the more he isolated himself from everyone around him, using the many steps as a deterrent to any visitors. Ultimately, we'll likely never be certain. Our silver medal ranked placement for the biggest plot hole is Mirabelle being trapped in Bruno's room. Since we just mentioned how horrible a design this room is, we may as well mention one of the most confusing parts of the movie. Just how did Mirabelle manage to leave Bruno's room with the vision? In order to reach the cave at the top of the stairs, Mirabel had to swing across and land on the other side. Not only did the ledge she barely made it onto collapse, but we also see that there was no way to swing back over. Casita also made a point in letting Mirabel know it couldn't help her when she went into Bruno's room.
You can't help in here?
So the idea of the house manipulating itself to help her along wouldn't work here. It was one of those details that left fans scratching their heads. Finally, taking the gold medal for the biggest plot hole is Abuela and Bruno's quick reconciliation. Our biggest quarrel with this movie is that Abuela Alma and Bruno's reunion was rushed and glossed over. There's little that can be said to make this forgivable, especially considering that it wasn't just Alma's apology to Bruno that was rushed, but Julietta and Peppa's apologies as well. Everything was bandaged together with a song and the quick rebuilding of Casita, making this the most unforgivable plot hole of the entire feature. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.